Welcome to the Pun Show. I'm your trusty host, Macklen MacLoogie. It can be tough to know when to take a break these days. How much do we owe it to society to keep fighting for justice, and how much do we owe it to ourselves to check out every now and again for sanity purposes? Well, even professional fighters have round breaks. So consider me your corner man. Spit into my bucket of a show, and I'll put a steel compress of comedy onto those swollen, bludgeoned eyeballs. Yesterday was Sunday, so today must be Pun Day, June 22nd. With summer officially upon us, many recreational businesses are slowly starting to reopen. I beg the no mask crowd to please use common sense when patronizing those establishments, because some of us are still worried about a pandemic, and they exercised no common sense when patronizing us. I'm about to hop on a train to pontification. I hope the momentum that our country has right now for racial justice doesn't let up as soon as we perceive the problem to be going away. We must parlay this eventual victory into conquering other forms of prejudice, like sexism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, ableism, ageism, to name just a few. Even a dumb Muslim knows that. Oh, and Islamophobia. Time to tee off with my pun of the day. A Ted Cruz sounds like it should be an awful theme ship run by Mark Wahlberg and Seth MacFarlane. And I'd still prefer that to the real thing. Here to talk about pride and compassion, that sounds like a Jane Austen sequel, actor and poet Devion Coleman.
I have a lot of open conversations, and I think I don't go in it trying to change anyone's mind. I go in it trying to get to a place of some type of understanding, of some kind of like, you don't have to agree with my point of what I feel that we should do, but do you see the suffering? This is something that you can't, I mean, this is not a either or type of situation. We see that this is happening. We see the brutality. We see the microaggressions, the macroaggressions. We see all of these type of things. So do you see that? Can you? Because usually I think when people receive new information, it's hard for them to admit that they're wrong. So a lot of people don't want to admit that, hey, you were right. Not me specifically, but you guys were right. This is what's happening. But to have those people in your life that don't necessarily agree with, I guess, basic human decency. It's like I had to say, just treating people kind and treating people the right way and not abusing power and not being a supremacist. So it's just like, to me, it's just like things that are just like, okay, this makes sense. Then to go to the justifiers, as I like to call them, the justifiers of actions, instead of the defenders of people, it gets a little emotional and gets a little rocky. But if I'm not there in it, then how can I ever have a voice in it? Then they're just going to go to people that think the same, and I'm going to people to think the same, and then it's still going to be just two people on separate aisles not being able to communicate with each other.
I love that you try to see where they're coming from, but doesn't it frustrate you that it seems like they're not putting in the same effort to see where you're coming from? Because I feel that way all the time.
Sometimes it can. I don't think I get frustrated. I get a little inward. Like I just kind of go in, like I'm disappointed. Yeah. I'm disappointed because I don't expect people to think or feel the same way I do. But it hurts a little bit, especially if it's a friend that I am close to or that I know.
How do you personally feel about Pride and BLM coming together this month, hand in hand?
Did they come together? Is that what happened?
It's a convergence, at least, of the two movements. They're converging.
Yeah, you can't have pride without having Black pride, because Marsha P. Johnson was one of the pioneers of pride. Pride started as a protest 51 years ago at Stonewall. Back when police just go in there and arrest people for being gay. That's why gay clubs are important. That's where we went to feel safe from the outside world, where we could put on a dress and be as feminine as we wanted to, as masculine as we can be free, but to have the outside world, the heteronormative society come in there and like take you to jail and beat you and all that stuff. That's what's happening. And it was our trans sisters and our trans brothers and our drag queens and our femme queens and our muscle gays and everybody that's involved in that community to stand up and fight, which was the first protest, which it led to being kind of like the first Pride, and that was started by trans women of color. So what we've gotten to now, though, is kind of a separation of the two, especially in West Hollywood. I'm kind of noticing a little bit more is that it's very segregated, and I will always use the defense that's segregated by music, but that's not always true. So it's interesting to see what's happening because I'm afraid that it's a fad. I'm afraid that it is trending because the gay communities kind of have had this problem with race, like a very bad racial problem, bias, especially when it comes to black guys and lesbians, black lesbians. So the movement itself, I am uncertain by it. I am in a little bit, even with the march, it turned into kind of like a party in a sense. It turned into kind of like this thing which, celebrate, but also we're there because these people are dying. And if you want to say that your main point is to protest the black trans people that are dying rapidly, then we need to keep that in mind. So it's not just everybody getting out of their house and just marching, having fun. And yeah, I did. It was also Pride weekend. I love it. I love being gay. I love boys. Yum, yum. But, we have to make sure that the main cause is still at the forefront. But it's the change comes into what do you do now? So like you want to get there and march, you want to say this, and companies want to release these statements that they're all for Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. But let's look at your board. Let's look at who you're hiring. Let's look at who's in charge. You have to look within your own home. Sweep around your own front door before you go sweep around somebody else's. Because if you don't have different people in your own house or in your own group, then you're kind of missing the point. Because you have to actively seek people that are different because of what has happened with redlining and school districts and all that stuff, we are conditioned to be separate. We are conditioned to be, away from each other. So we have to find that place of community within each other, even if that person doesn't look like you or have your same religious beliefs, because we have more empathy for people when we can personally attach someone to it. If I didn't know someone who was Muslim, it would be easier for me to think of them more in a fairy tale way and detach myself from them. But because I can draw that line of like, oh, my friend so-and-so, he practices this religion, or he is this, or so my friend so-and-so is trans, so now I educate myself more about this so I can draw a personal connection to it. So we have to do the work at home in order for us to be better and to do better.
I've done so much soul searching in these last couple months, just thinking, like, I've always assumed I'm a good person, and I don't know if that's enough. It's not enough anymore to just be a good person. Like, it's the difference between being not racist and anti-racist.
Yeah. I mean, we have to also understand that racism is not always intentional. It's not, I think
I would say most racism is unintentional.
Yeah. But it's also calling ourselves out on it. It's like, oh, wait, I was racist. I'm sorry. Or if someone tells you that they're experiencing some type of racism or that was a racist act to them, you say, oh, I'm sorry. You don't put it on them to teach them. Like, you don't have to say, like, hey, teach me what I did. No, just listen and go home and learn for yourself why that was a mistake. So, we got to check ourselves, and it is exhausting to do it. It is a lot to do it. But if people really matter, then we will do it, and we will hold ourselves up for that. And my friends are probably always annoyed with me because I'm always like, probably shouldn't say that. Probably shouldn't say that. Probably shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Say, do whatever you want, but probably shouldn't do that. How do you feel in this climate, and what's new for you, I guess?
I'm hopeful, more hopeful than I've been in a long time, but I'm also very afraid. And fear is not helpful. Fear is not constructive. But I can't get too ahead of myself and pretend that everything is going to be different in November, because there's enough people who don't have that empathy that you're talking about. Yeah. And they might not be bad people per se, but they're not good enough to take 1 second to think about somebody else, to think about someone else's life who they've never met. They're too preoccupied in their own bullshit to have compassion.
Disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I grew up in a 100% black town until I was about 16. So when I was 16, I went to boarding school and I met people of different races, white people. This like I white teachers. I was like, oh, this is new. It's 8 of me, but like 100 of y'all. All right, let's see how this works. But I say that because a lot of those small towns and a lot of places we're able to kind of see we fear what we don't understand. So we fear what we don't know. We fear what we don't understand. And it's easy to I guess compartmentalize in our mind those people as fictional characters in a sense, because if it doesn't directly affect your everyday usually, then it's easy. It's I guess I won't say easy, but I think your mind kind of treats it in that way. You're not used, if you're not used to seeing a black person every day or used to seeing or placing it in your mind as real, it's kind of easy to look at it all as just fiction or media or shows. And although you may want to help and you may want to do that, but if you're Facebook, if your social media is all kind of revolved around some one topic, one this, you know cops, but you don't know black people. It's kind of like I'm not giving anybody a pass at all because it's 2020. But I can see how it's easy for me to base my idea of whiteness on a stereotype if I wasn't fortunate enough to be around people that were white, people that are white. So it's easy for me to lump everybody together if I wasn't able to have that connection on my own.
Well, that about does it for our show today. We're back in 6 days with an all new episode. As always, I ask you to consider donating to a charity selected by my guest. Today, Devion picked this one. I'm Macklen McLugie, and remember, Republicans buy sneakers too. So we have to buy steel-toed boots to kick them all out of office. Laces out, Don.